And how about this? Balding young, what we think society thinks looks good versus what society actually thinks. Chris G 18 says this, quote, Nick, I watched your videos about becoming bald and growing a beard in relation to baldness. What about men who are bald and do not wear or grow a beard, but wear and grow a mustache? What are your opinions and thoughts about baldness, bald men, and those who grow a mustache? Would you recommend the style? What is your theory about baldness and mustaches? Thank you. You're wise for asking. That's a good question. I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but it's been a while. So as far as theories, mustaches and baldness, there's two things I really want to cover on that. First of all, I've always said, if you can grow a full beard by the time you graduate high school, there's a good chance you're going to be losing your hair sooner than other guys. I've always said that. What about Asian men? Because they typically can grow some kind of light mustache, but not a full beard, I've noticed. And maybe a little bit right here. And I remember I lived in Asia for 2 summers in Thailand and also Korea. So I was very much exposed to know and see all that and study it all. Here's my theory on that. Growing a mustache has nothing to do with how soon you're going to lose your hair. It's about the beard. Because again, even men who may never grow a beard can probably grow a little bit of a mustache and a little bit of this part on their chin. I see no relation between growing a mustache and growing a beard. The only thing is, if a boy is able to grow a thick mustache by the age of maybe 14, he's probably the same kid that 2 years later is going to grow the full beard, which according to my theory will be the guy that loses his hair on the early side of 35 as opposed to the second side. Because if you can keep your Norwood 2 past 35, then you're probably the guy who doesn't go bald. So there's my first question, or my first thing. As long as you're not going to be able to grow a very thick mustache by the time you're even in high school, then you're probably, it's all still part of that beard theory, you know what I'm saying? But let's talk about the other part of the question there. How do I feel about men and mustaches and how it relates to baldness? I've said this before, and boy is this going to sound politically incorrect, but I don't care. Because I think it's a positive thing. When I think about, this is the opposite of racism. When I think of the most attractive, physically attractive race as far as men, and remember I'm married to a woman and have 2 kids, but still I can identify, we all can, certain men look better than other men. For me though, when I think of black men, African American men, African men, men of African descent, I think of the men who just by default look the best. Like they just don't even have to do anything. They just look the best. The skin tone, just the structure of the face, the way it all works out, they just look attractive, in my opinion. Men of African descent. Also, they can get away with a mustache, they can get away with a beard, they can get away with clean shaven. Any kind of facial hair really works for black men. And I noticed that because I was back in college when I was thinking about, like, why is there irony associated with a white man having a mustache? It is. Like I've said before, and I've been a blogger for a decade, and I've blogged about this before. I said the only way to be white and to have a mustache and get away with it is if you're a cop. If you're a cop or you're over 40, then you can get away with it without it being ironic. Like there's a new movie, The Meyerowitz Chronicles or something on Netflix with Adam Sandler. And Adam Sandler, what, is he pushing 50 by now? I don't know. But he's got a mustache. And it actually looks good. It works for him. But he's definitely over 40 by this point. Here's my beliefs on mustaches. If you're a white guy, you can't get away with a mustache until you at least become a cop, a policeman, or you're over 40. And most of you are definitely not over 40. That's why you're watching the channel, because you're starting to lose your hair at an early age. So if you identify as a white guy, and maybe I should be specific, European descent, and maybe I should be more specific, North European descent, like of Scottish, English, Irish, Welsh, even German descent, when I think of more of like Northern Europe. But what about if you're Jewish or you're Middle Eastern? That's still going to fall more on the sides of what is white. Maybe you can get away with it more if you look, I think, more ethnic than an average white guy. And I think I might kind of fall probably closer to the Middle Eastern Jewish, because that is in my bloodline. I'm European, and I'm Jewish and Middle Eastern, and I'm Central American because my mom's Mexican. So I'm a little bit of all of these things. But ultimately, when I have a mustache alone, it's still just funny. It's ironic because still with me with a mustache, I still look too much just like a white guy under 40, and it's ironic. What I'm going to say is, it just seems that other ethnicities can get away with it more. Like if you're, let's say if you're Indian, like from the country of India, not Native American, even if you are Asian, but especially if you're African American or of African descent, they get away with it. They can pull it off. I just don't think that men of, Northern European descent can get away with it, and not even I can get away with it. When I had that beard about a month ago, and then I shaved it off, and I did an Instagram of just the beard, I look at that and I think I look more ethnic with the beard, in some kind of almost Middle Eastern way, I thought, or maybe I should be from like Serbia or something. I don't know, but still, I'm not 40 yet, and I think it comes with the territory. So those are my thoughts on mustaches. I think, for the most part, if you're a white guy, it's just gonna look ironic and kind of funny. Unless maybe you're wanting to go like old, like really old world with it and have the, the big fancy mustache with the shaved head. I think if it's making a statement, you can get away with it like that, like some kind of like, hipster thing. You can get away with it for sure. Just like with the hat, I say what I say. When you wear a hat, make it count, so that it doesn't look like you're hiding behind a hat all the time because you're going bald. I don't want anyone to ever. It's important to me that people don't think that I'm insecure, because I'm not, and I don't want to reflect that. It's part of my identity that I always show the world I'm a confident person. Why? Because we all know, and I say it all the time, a sign of a confident man, or a sign of a man who is attractive in and out, is a confident man. So it's important to me that I always project to the world that I am confident. And so when I do wear a hat, I make it a cool hat. I make it part of my identity. So mustache, I kind of put it up, kind of in the same situation as a hat. If you're gonna have a mustache, make it count. But just keep in mind, if you're a mainly white guy, people may just think it's funny until it's long enough to have some kind of character on there. It's a tricky thing, is really my answer. And if you're black, then go for it every time. Grow the mustache. But if you're black, you're not watching my channel. And I've made a video about that before. Black men, African men don't watch my channel because they worry less about hair loss than the rest of us. I've noticed that. Hardly any of my subscribers are of African descent. It's just culturally not something that matters to them. They're so good looking, and with or without hair, they just really pull it off. And I'm sure the skin tone matching the darkness of the hair has something to do with it too. But just the way they look, man, I should stop talking about how attractive black men are, because this is getting weird. Remember, I'm married and have kids. This is getting weird.